My microphone for some reason. I'll fix that real quick. It's because it's not plugged in. I'm dead, bro. Ah, 1 second. Oh, techno. Dude, that's what I need to make. It's like a technical difficulty screen I can go do real quick.
Put that up on the screen real quick.
Yeah. Sorry about that, guys. 1 second. Having technical difficulties with my mic. I think I'm gonna fix it now. So, yep. All right, we're back up and running on my normal microphone. Sorry about that, guys. Welcome to the Week Ahead News Show, episode 33. It is currently August 20th, 2025. On this current Monday, it's already dark. You will get in that fall weather now. How you doing, Tommy? Welcome.
Thanks for having me again. It's crazy. 33 episodes. Have we done one episode where the state of the country is going well? Like,
Not yet since we started, sadly. How things be
and
going?
we got more of the same here today. So it's good to be back on the show to talk about the state of the sorry state of the country right now under the Trump regime. So yeah, thanks for having me again.
Let's kick it off. Let me refresh some of these things on our screens. We have the weather below us, current stocks above, which Tommy we were talking about a little bit later. Today, currently in Gerard, it says 46 here on my iPad. It actually says 50. Probably hasn't updated yet. Um, oh yeah, my bad. It's October, not August. Caitlin told me that. Thank you. I said October, I guess. August, I mean, not October. Um, but we're going to go weather for tomorrow. It'll be rainy again. 60% chance of rain. 60 degrees, 44. Wednesday, 75% chance of rain, 49, 42. Very cold on Wednesday. I'm not going anywhere on Wednesday, maybe. Maybe we'll see. Might be a work from home day. Thursday, 55% chance of rain, 51, 42. Friday, 40% chance of rain, 51, 39. Friday's going to suck. I have to go out to a site visit on Friday. It's not going to be fun. Saturday, sunny, 55, 35. Oh my God, it's getting cold. It's getting winter already, bro. At least Sunday, it's going to get a little bit warmer. It's going to be a little partly rainy, 35% chance. But we'll get a high of 57, low of 40. Next Monday, we get partly cloudy. They're expecting 64, 44, so a little bit better. It'll be nice to see. UV index has been low right now. Obviously, the sun's not out. Air quality has been good today. Our first light was at 7:12. Sunrise was at 7:40. Sunset 6:34. Holy crap! And last light was at 7:02, which gets us a total daylight under 11 hours. 10 hours and 53 minutes. Holy crap! We're getting dark, guys. Staying sad. The last 24 hours we had zero point 0.4 inches of rain. It feels like 49 right now. Nice and cold in Ohio. 77% humidity. Moon's in waxing crescent. 0% illumination. Next full moon, 16 days for the werewolves out there. Getting Halloween season. It happens. Tommy will be going over the last week ahead or week past stocks, for the last 5 day stocks. These stocks above us for today. All about 1 to 2% gains, it looks like.
Yeah, that's reflected in the last 5 days as well. So over the last 5 days, Dow was up 831 points, 1.8%. S&P 500 up 137 points, a little over 2%. And then the Nasdaq up 627 points, up 2.8%.
All right, so it's about percentage gains. That's actually pretty good. Good to see. 1.8 to about 3% of the 2.8. So interesting to see. Before we go into a funny topic for the week, I would like everyone to drop a like if you can, subscribe if you haven't yet, leave a Facebook in the description like we always do every episode now. Pretty easy to put it in there. Follow us on there if you haven't. That'd be nice. Like our content too. Funny topic, and writing this, I like to me, it's funny that Trump's doing this. It's like the topics themselves isn't funny, and like these memes he's creating is not funny. But you kind of get what we're talking
Mm.
about. Because Donald Trump, he's been posting a lot of AI videos, but he posted AI videos that's basically trolling. Um, it was basically showing himself wearing a crown, seated in a fighter jet marked King Trump, and he flies over protesters and he drops what appears to be brown sludge, brown liquid or waste, probably shit, onto a crowd marked as participants of a nationwide No Kings protests. In the clip sent to Kenny Loggins, a danger zone, kind of like in Top Gear, because a lot of his fans like that. One of the people targeted, I guess, was this Harry Sisson, and they actually had him in the video. A 23-year-old activist and influencer. So that's just crazy. He's actually going after people too. Um, we'll talk about this a little bit later, but No Kings protests themselves. I'm in support of that. It's just funny that like he's actually a president and he's posting AI slop. He's actually been posting a lot of other AI videos depicting people in Congress and a lot of his political enemies, which is insane. He was the man who kind of conned fake news during the election of Hillary and made that a big thing again, even in big thing in his election and what he would use a lot. And he's using a lot of fake news and propaganda. AI is just it's bad because we're getting to a point where some of it's so good, where like these fans like who are ignorant that follow both sides, it doesn't really matter. You can believe anything's real nowadays, and I see it on Facebook comments. You can see all the old people like, "Oh my God, this is so crazy," and then all the younger people like, "Oh, this is AI," and like sometimes like it will actually be a real video, and people like would just be like, "Oh, this is AI," and people are laughing at him because they know that like he's joking. But it's crazy when we see people in power use it, and I even say like I haven't really seen many people on the left at all use it in ways like this to attack people. They probably use it to make um, kind of like Canva, like PDFs and stuff. It might, what I mean, rather than paying someone to use Photoshop, they might just be like, hey, Photoshop, make me this event poster. But not really in ways of trying to influence people or be a clown. I think it shows a lot about what Trump's doing right now and just like deflecting all the bad things. I saw this in like a panel on CNN. Because CNN right now has they'll have like panels of a lot of conservatives and like one or two liberals, and it was about how like they're like, well, the country's so bad right now, we need a laugh. So like they're literally defending Trump being a clown, but like if a liberal was like, well, we actually have to fix stuff, and it's like just like that with Biden, and it's like that with any president. Like no full president could just be a clown. They actually have to get work done. So that would be nice to see. I think it's funny that Trump's posting this stuff because it just shows that how unserious he's taking this job. If it's crazy to me too, because if I was president, Tommy, like I wouldn't be on social media. Someone would handle that for me. But Trump
Yeah.
loves it, and he's on social media, so it's just crazy to me. It shows where he puts his effort, and if he wanted to be a good president, he'd be putting that social media effort in literally real stuff to fix the country. What you think,
So
Tommy?
my commentary on this is very, very, very simple, and it's essentially, our president's an asshole. Like that's my commentary on this. Okay, so um, today I was talking to an elected official, and they were telling me, they don't just represent, you know, Democrats. They don't just represent Republicans. They represent their broader constituents. And, that is certainly true of the president of the United States as well. When Joe Biden got elected, he said he wanted to be a unifying president. We're not seeing any sort of attempt to do that under the Trump regime. The president instead is chosen to, openly mock again his constituents. Both myself and you, you know, Donald Trump works for us. It doesn't feel like it because in actuality, he doesn't actually works for us. He works for the oligarchs, the billionaires, his wealthy elites, Elon Musk, etc.
Mm-hmm.
But in theory, at least, the president of the United States works for all Americans, regardless of political party, and that's true of any sort of elected
Right.
official. And and instead of, you know, Trump and the Trump regime trying to actually, serve the public and serve the public interest and actually, reach out to people that again he is, technically representing. he chose to make AI slop and post it online of him literally, dropping shit on people that he represents. So I think people should be asking the president, why do you think the American people are shitty? Why do you think they deserve to have shit dropped on them, in this AI video? Why did you think that was funny? These are your people. You're the president of the United States. So I think it just shows a complete, utter lack of maturity, of seriousness, of any sort of word that you can think of that requires, brain cells to work in tandem, clearly the Trump administration lacks, because they would not do stuff like this, because they would not actively try to piss off the people. But again, there is another element to this though, which is,
Mm-hmm.
Donald Trump does not have any interest in serving, the broader American people. His interests are served by um inflaming culture war issues, by inflaming certain things throughout this nation that make it easy for him and his rich friends to loot the treasury, to lower their taxes and stuff like. So in many respects, in basically in all respects, Donald Trump has no interest in serving the American people, and,
Yeah.
and then in that video, it just shows that, he thinks that we're just a bunch of people that should have shit dropped on them, and it's disgusting. It's disgusting, but here we are again. We have a president that doesn't like the people that put him in office. He
Mm-hmm.
doesn't like the American people, doesn't respect anybody, doesn't respect the institutional norms and values of our country.
Yeah.
It's just disgusting.
And like
You know,
after the
um,
lies and lies of like Epstein, and he even said like you said, Biden in a lot of his speeches talked about unifying both sides. That he was president for both sides, and Trump said in the campaign trail during debates he was going to be like that. And the first step he takes, he isn't. And I mean, and it's just like time and time again with the lies. He's disrespecting his own voters too, and his own constituents. You have to see that too. Like he's taking away Medicare. That's a lot of his voters. 600 million from that. It's gonna hurt them. They're gonna see it and feel it.
yeah. Elections have consequences. And it's just unfortunate that, the consequences of the last election are, that the people are going to die.
Yeah,
People are, the lack of health insurance. There's so many issues that are going to be forthcoming because of this last election, and just sort of collectively as a group of good Americans, we have to do our best to get through this together.
agreed. Really agreed. Tommy will be headlining our national, kind of international topic one today, which is the USA No Kings protest too. Kind of like ties in with our funny topic with Trump attacking it and being mad. Really, he's just butthurt so many people are doing it that more people could show up to protest in his inauguration. But go on, Tommy. Excited to hear about it.
Yeah, sure. So, No Kings 2. So for those that don't know, last weekend, was the second of the No Kings protest, nationwide protests that, were designed to, call out the authoritarian actions of the Trump administration, how he's sort of acting, dictatorial, king-like, not respecting the rule of law. So that happened over the weekend. An estimated 7 million participants gathered in over 2,600 events across all 50 U.S. states. Major hubs included New York City, which had over 100,000 people. Then you had Washington D.C. that had over 200,000, and then Chicago and Los Angeles as well had significant um, turnouts. So just locally here in Warren, we saw a little bit over 1,000 people, which is a massive, massive turnout for our area.
Yeah,
Um,
2,500
you
in
know,
Youngstown,
they
right?
would
That's what I heard at least.
2,500 in Youngstown, yeah, and locally here in Trumbull, the turnout was good. Um, the protests were peaceful. The de-escalation training was used. And all of this was in spite of the heightened tension we're seeing right now. So it's also good that this was all peaceful.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, as we talked about in our funny topic, Donald Trump did not like this. Posted his AI generated slop online. And Mike Johnson and other Republican leaders framed the protest as extremist or anti-American, which is ironic coming from people that are actively destroying this country.
Yep.
Um, so, Um, what we have seen over the weekend, the protests of these sorts of size and scale. Then this is not something that happens every day. It's very hard, to get the American public out into the streets to protest. It's hard enough to get people to vote, let alone even you know sort of go out and exercise their constitutional right to peaceably assemble.
Mm-hmm.
But it's happening, and that is sort of an indicator of people are starting to get worried. People are starting to get worried about how our democratic norms are being threatened, how they're being attacked, and
Mm-hmm.
people are truly, I think, starting to um, become scared and concerned about the future of their country. So, um, yeah. So, in closing, um, the events around the country, over 7 million people, hundreds of thousands coming out in major American cities. The Trump regime is not interested in working with people, so expect, going forward, expect more protests, and it's just going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. Um, I suspect, unfortunately, you know, the calls of the protesters, are not even going to be listened to.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, in the Trump regime, the wealthy, the moneyed interests speak loudly and speak volumes over the 7 million average Americans that hit the streets. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, just keep an eye on this. I would encourage everybody to get involved. Authoritarianism, fascism, it rises when we as American people don't do things and don't exercise our rights to peaceably assemble and call out these things. Fascism, it requires a disinterested population.
Mm-hmm.
And I just encourage everyone, stand up for what's right. Stand up for stand against all of these terrible, terrible, terrible actions that are being that are being brought by the Trump regime. Do so peacefully,
Mm-hmm.
take to the streets peacefully, and exercise your right, because that's this is the power that we have now,
Mm-hmm.
and
And
we have to
it's
exercise it.
good, Tommy. Like we could organize now in my eyes. You know what I mean? Like it's interesting. Like for flows of politics. Um, with like after Bush, and we have protested before. For Iraq War, Vietnam. If certain things like change does happen after that, so it is going to be interesting. Did you want to say anything real quick? I'm sorry I cut you off too.
No, no, no. I was just gonna say, if you had anything else to add on this.
Yeah, because I was also thinking like a lot of people say like you know protesting is kind of useless. You just kind of stand there, do chants all day, and leave. But really, like kind of said about it, there's so much more to it because you get to actually organize, make those groups bigger. But then a lot of it's just like for talks you get to have with people. You know what I mean? About communities, for systems you learn about, for groups you get to learn about. You can learn about food banks, you can learn about women's shelters, you can learn about just a bunch of different stuff, and people that are a part of those groups. Um, you don't, like, there's not many times in society. Town Square used to be a meeting place like that, but a place that you could actually just meet and talk with people like that. You could talk with people that are 12, 14, 15, 16, all the way up to, 80 to 90. You know what I mean? 95, very elderly people that all wanted to meet at that place to fight for these issues, to talk about it, to learn. And you can have a lot of good conversations with people. And that in turn helps fight against what you're trying to fight. You see a lot of groups get stronger during these times, so it's good to see it. Like and I kind of agree. It's nice that it was peaceful. From the videos I've seen, literally, there was more violence after Charlie Kirk, Virgil's, than there was at these protests. People fighting and rallying, because you're always gonna have people at the other side show up to this, especially nowadays, because some people just love making money off of it, so they'll just show up, even if they don't aren't even in politics, and it's always just like dress up as the other side and try to bait people. So there's gonna be situations, but like Tommy said, the de-escalation was great. people I've seen videos of people like in New York and a lot of cities. It's like if they were gonna try, someone's trying to start something in a big rowdy crowd, you can get mugged and jumped pretty easily, and they were just pushing them away and telling them, hey, like you if you're gonna act up, don't be around here. It's not smart, and it isn't, and you have to be smart about that too. So it's good that everything was safe. I really hope people could organize to fight against Trump and everything he's trying to do. There's a lot of nuance to everything. Trump obviously isn't a king right now, but he's acting like one. He's not listening to the courts. He's not listening to his own constituents and the people that voted him in. So for America, that's the closest we're going to get to a king, because we're never going to have a true king unless he tries to run again. And it, makes it where he wins again, too, with what he's doing with the National Guard, then he is. And that's the nuance to it. It's like, if you learn history, if you learn the steps he's taking and the stuff he's ignoring, well, that's why we call him a king, and that's why it's happening right now. And a lot of people agree, so that's my take on
And
it, Tom.
yeah, and what's interesting too is a lot of the people on the right, they're essentially gaslighting the left. He's not a king. Why is your protest called no king? Let's look across the pond over at Europe. We'll look at a country, like Hungary. You know, Viktor Orban, who's the leader of Hungary. He's not a king per se. But he's an authoritarian leader. And in Hungary, they have elections. Do the elections matter? No, because they're all gerrymandered all hell. They have elections that don't matter. They have a government that is completely unresponsive to the people. So sure, Viktor Orban in Hungary is not wearing a crown, but he's sure acting like a king. He's not responsive to the people that elected him. And by the way, the voters, they're drawn in districts that are purposely drawn to dilute their power so they can't influence anything anyway. So
Yeah.
of course, the right is going to point to, we have elections, Trump's not a king. But what we are actually moving towards in this country is a country that has elections, but they don't really matter. That has something that looks like a democratic system, but really isn't. That's the concern. It's not that Donald Trump's going to be wearing a crown, but we are moving towards that system where the government is no longer dependent upon the consent of the governed, which
Mm-hmm.
is one of those core things that make governments legitimate, is that people consent to be governed. Okay, so it's just crazy. It's just crazy. And of course, the right, in their stupid ways, are just going to gaslight us. He's
Mm-hmm.
not wearing a crown. He's not wearing a crown. Well, maybe they should pick up a book and
Yeah.
actually see what authoritarianism actually looks like.
And it's interesting too, Tommy, because like first thing he does when he gets in the White House, he puts gold up everywhere and he starts remodeling it. That's the first thing a king would do once he gets into a new house too, isn't that
Yeah.
weird? I don't know. I don't know if we've ever had a president that put as much gold in the White House and the Oval Office, making it look like something that Julius Caesar would do. Well, I wonder what he was, and it just blows my mind. Like he kind of is acting like it, especially with the courts, especially with ICE. Like it reminds me, like watch Shrek. Even Shrek, they have people taking people and relocating them. That's literally the whole reason how that movie starts. Is Shrek's mad there's people in a swamp that were moved out of a kingdom. Ain't that crazy? So that was my king.
He's doing all this remodeling. He's doing all this remodeling. Maybe they got some lead paint back up in the Oval Office. Maybe that's why everything's going bad. Maybe Trump thinks lead-free paint is woke, and he's like putting lead all over. Like who knows? Who knows? But you're right though. The symbolism that he's employing, is very similar to that of a king or a dictator. The massive flagpole in front of the in front of the White House, all of the different sort of decor, the cheap Amazon, probably not even Amazon Prime, like just Amazon, 3M adhesive, gold that he has in the
Mm-hmm.
Oval Office.
They're
It's
having a
very
fight in
much
front
like,
of the White House next year. What does that
yeah,
sound like
yeah,
to you?
they're breaking out the octagon, yeah.
Yep. They actually should have had
It's
it.
crazy.
They should have had it in the Pentagon. An octagon in the Pentagon. That would have been crazy, bro.
They should be like
Geometrists
in
just
the middle of the
explode.
Pentagon.
That's what I was thinking, right in the middle.
They don't even got to build it. They don't even got to build anything. The ring's there.
Just make a gladiator style, last one to survive. everyone can watch it from their windows.
Oh my God. Happy America 250, everybody.
Enjoy. We'll go into a local topic one. Make sure you drop a like if you're enjoying the content so far. It is about the DeWine hemp ban. Ohio businesses can resume selling not intoxicating hemp products for now because a judge issued a temporary restraining order, TRO, blocking Mike DeWine's 90-day statewide ban. The ban was was to start on October 14th, but the TRO delays in enforcement for at least 14 days. The details of the ban and the TRO, the executive order DeWine issued, was on October 9th, so he gave him 5 days to ban the sales of intoxicating hemp products, THC-infused items outside licensed marijuana dispensaries for 90 days. Give them, I think that's called it starts with an M, like a moratorium. Because it's
Moratorium?
a moratorium, thank you, because it's only 90 days, so it's only a certain time limit anyway. But the fact to give someone 5 days to do it's kind of crazy. A lot of this is targeting places like gas stations or vape stores that will sell vapes, but then they also sell kind of weed, but it's kind of not weed. Kind of, bud vapes that are kind of not bud vapes, because it's not like actual, it's like Delta 9, Delta 8, CBD stuff, hemp stuff. The TRO granted by Carl Amby, Judge of Franklin County Court of Common Pleas, on October 14th, 2025. Pauses enforcement for a ban of 14 days while challenges proceed. The next hearing is scheduled for October 28th. So I guess define the intoxicating hemp products contain THC are sold outside licensed marijuana dispensaries. So like I said, gas stations, smoke shop, and there's even like certain CBD stores you'll probably see around as well. It's not regular marijuana, which was already legal under Ohio's 2023 voter-approved law. That ban did not apply to licensed marijuana sales at all. Two different things. Governor DeWine's rationale is he emphasized that the need to protect children from these products that mimic candy packaging and have high THC levels. He said it is working with the legislature to pass permanent regulation of these products. And one of this too is kind of like it shows that Ohio is not really good at stopping these products from getting in, or even stopping them from being sold at stores or gas stations. And it kind of shows that they already know that kids, certain gas stations they can go and not get carded, so they're going to get this anyway. I definitely agree it should be banned, but we have to work on enforcement too, because there's other stuff. Like there's like weird mushroom chocolates and mushrooms you could buy that's like synthetic. Because I learned I took this chemistry class for environmental engineers, and we kind of learned how chemists go across banning products. So if you try to ban Teflon, DuPont's just going to have their engineers try to make something that's really close to Teflon, but not Teflon. And Tommy probably knows about this for a lot of laws and stuff like that. So they kind of do the same for THC and mushrooms and everything else. If you try to ban this, they're just going to change it up a little bit. He said he's working on it with the legislature to pass permanent regulation of these products, which I agree, but he also needs to enforce them as well. The industry and legal challenge position. Several hemp industry businesses, members of Ohio Healthy Alternative Association, filed suit against and arguing DeWine's order. It is overly broad and vague, they say. There is no legal definition of intoxicating hemp in the Ohio statute. They need to add that, I guess. Violates via 2018 Farm Bill, an existing Ohio law that permits hemp under 0.3% THC to be sold. So me and Tommy were talking about this a little bit before. I don't know if they GMO'd hemp or found a way to chemically get rid of all the THC from it, but if you grow hemp, there's going to be a little bit of THC. So that's kind of why when we legalized hemp in 2018, they had to do this and basically legalize CBD to be sold that had 0.3% THC. That's why you saw smoke shops selling it since 2018. I've seen it at vape shops. They claim the order threatens thousands of businesses, 4,000 plus realtors, smoke and hemp shops, and it could face closures, especially at this bad time of the economy. So interesting to see. I definitely think hemp has great aspects. It's just that it should kind of also be regulated in certain aspects. If we're going to regulate something that has THC just because we say it has THC in it, we should probably regulate if it has a little bit in it, or basically the sister of that, which is CBD. If you're going to regulate pure liquor, you better regulate beer. You're not just going to regulate liquor. But I kind of agree that it should also be delayed because 5 days is just freaking crazy. One business, as Titan Logistics Group, said that all of its sales are hemp product based and will be forced to close under the ban. another fume, smoke, and vape. Estimated 25% of its sales are from hemp products and possible layoffs of its staff. It's from the Ohio Capital Journal, so it's probably like a vape shop. What do you think, Tommy? Because I know we talked a little bit about it before. It'd be interesting to see what the state does with this.
A nuanced opinion on this. My opinion is nuanced. So first off, I think when you're dealing with intoxicating hemp products, voters several years ago approved Ohio Issue 2, which legalized recreational marijuana for medical marijuana was already illegal. Sales in Ohio are going strong right now. We have a robust regulatory regime. Um, so what I would say is these intoxicating hemp products. The problem with them is they don't have to meet they don't have to meet the same packaging and safety standards that stuff that you would get at the dispensaries has to do. The stuff that was approved by voters. So for instance, Governor DeWine, for instance, showed examples of, intoxicating hemp products that look pretty much identically to candy. They look like Sour Patch Kids. They look like Sour Patch Kids or Reese Puffs. They're not just like gummies. Like they're really they're really designed to mimic candy. So certainly stuff like that shouldn't be allowed. Certainly, I think intoxicating hemp products, should have to comply with the same regulations that,
Mm-hmm.
regular marijuana has to, and that was approved by voters. I don't think you should be able to buy this stuff from vape shops either. I think people should have to, pay the taxes that is generated through dispensary sales. We could have a talk about, the tax level and stuff like that, and I'd be willing to entertain that conversation. But certainly, I think the tax money's got to go through, the existing system that's been set up already and approved by voters. Um, in terms of, banning, um, intoxicating hemp products, outright. I think they could keep selling them in the dispensaries. Who's gonna buy them? Nobody's gonna buy it.
Yeah.
The whole selling point of the intoxicating hemp product was that you didn't have to go to the dispensary. You know,
Mm.
um, so make no illusions. It's going to kill this whole industry here. But maybe this is an industry that should be superseded by the regulatory regime that was approved by voters. I also just want to talk about limiting sales just strictly outside of dispensaries. I'm more torn on. Perhaps a bar or a place that serves adults, should be able to serve a THC drink,
Yep.
something like that, and maybe our laws, need to be adjusted to allow for that under a regulated and controlled environment. So that's my one concern, just strictly, limiting sales to dispensaries is, I think in theory, an adult of legal age should be able to consume a THC drink in a bar, just like how another person can get a triple shot of bullet, and then, have a bad time.
Yeah.
I don't think that 5 milligram THC drink's gonna kill anybody. You know what I mean?
Agreed. Yeah.
Um, it's just crazy. It's just crazy. So yeah, overall, I think we have a problem here with intoxicating hemp products. They need to be regulated. We can have some conversations about the taxation and stuff like that. And my only concern about sort of banning all sales outside the dispensaries are those sort of nuanced cases like THC drinks at bars, et cetera, et cetera. So,
That makes a lot of
um,
sense. Yeah.
I think this is all just going to have to play out. And I think the legislature, they need to come together and they need to, work on some sort of common sense reform on intoxicating hemp products, that is actually, makes sense and is in line with, what the voters approved um several years ago. So that's my take on it.
Yeah. Agreed, Tommy. Are you ready to go into national topic two? Talking a lot. You might need a breath breather real quick. Make sure you guys drop a like. We'll be having a Northeast Ohio Sports Show on Thursday at 8:30, same times we have this show here. We have the bell below me. If you like the content, like that notification bell and hit all. And whenever we go live, you'll get a notification for it. You can also personalize it if you want it 30 or 15, 10 minutes before. You could do that. Subscribe as if you haven't. Look on our Facebook. Tell me we're going into a national topic too.
This is really bad. This is really, 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 really bad. This topic. Voting Rights Act faces a near-death experience at the Supreme Court. Oh my God. So, I'm taking my glasses off for a minute. So, for those that don't know, the Supreme Court of the United States just went back in session, and I'm like, oh my God, the pain train's going to start. I don't want to read any more Supreme Court opinions from this court. Anyway, so one of the cases that was in front of them, it was a case that is challenging the Voting Rights Act, specifically Section 2. So the case arises from a dispute over a congressional map in Louisiana where creation of a second black majority district is being challenged by white voters. So, of course, let's go into some background. So the Voting Rights Act was passed in 1965, and also, with the Civil Rights Act is a core piece of civil rights legislation that prohibits racial discrimination in voting. Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act allows challenges to voting laws or practices that result in the dilution of minority voters. Previously, until a case called Shelby County versus Holder in 2013, states that had a history of historical discrimination, had to get their voting laws pre-approved by a special division in the Department of Justice that worked with civil rights and stuff like that. That was already held unconstitutional. So the main avenue that remains for enforcement under the Voting Rights Act is this Section 2, which allows the challenging of race-based discrimination in votings and legislative districts. So Louisiana's congressional map with 6 House districts. Louisiana has a congressional map with 6 House districts. And the black population is roughly 1/3. The map originally had 1 majority black district. A court found the map likely harmed black voters under Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act and ordered a second district be created. Okay, so this sounds like a classic case of, politicians in Louisiana say, hey, there's a lot of African American voters that live together. So we're going to split it up in 2 so we can elect a white Republican, and these African American voters in Louisiana are denied the opportunity to elect a representative of their choice, which is what the Voting Rights Act is designed to protect. So the white voters sued, arguing that the maps relied too heavily on race and thus violated the Constitution's Equal Protection Clause. Of course, the Trump-era DOJ supported the challenge and proposed a stricter framework for Section 2 challenges, which that framework, according to people that are, to be honest, smarter than myself, say would completely eliminate the Section 2 challenges based on just, it would exist on paper, but when you actually would try to litigate that in court, it would be basically impossible. So this is really, really, really bad, and this is gonna serve as a venue for bad actors, to not only be able to harm black and brown people, but also entrench their own authoritarian power and entrench, their own sort of power, So what we have seen, historically in the South, is, after the Civil War, African Americans, at least in theory, they did not, but in theory, gained the right to vote. That did not happen fully until the Voting Rights Act. Okay, so, and in that time frame, every trick in the book was played. Literacy tests, poll taxes, all of these things. Some that are made illegal under constitutional law, some of them that are made illegal under the Voting Rights Act. Okay? But one of the oldest tricks in the book is racial gerrymandering. Okay? And the Voting Rights Act simply says that state legislatures cannot racially gerrymander to dilute the power of minorities. Okay, but people on the right seem to act like that preserving the ability of minority communities to elect a representative of their choice, they are conflating that with racial gerrymandering. Okay? Which there is a line between the two, and that line is important. This is a very, very, very complicated area of law. It's extremely complicated. Okay? But conflating, to put it simply for people listening, conflating the ability of African Americans, minorities to elect people in their that they choose in a fairly drawn district, conflating that with sort of the racial gerrymandering that is done throughout the United States, where they split minority communities in half, so they can ignore them. It's a false equivalency, and if the Supreme Court buys into this false equivalency, what we are going to see is a massive decrease in minority representation throughout the South. Right now we say Louisiana,
Mm-hmm.
African Americans represent 1/3 of the population of Louisiana, and they only gave them one, representative that they had one fair district that they had an opportunity to elect somebody in, and then they were ordered to draw two, so we're talking 2 of 6, you know, uh, you know, so we are dealing with, if the Supreme Court buys this, the Republicans, the bad actors, will use this as an opportunity to entrench their own power, hurt minority communities, and this will be devastating. This will be absolutely devastating for this country, as well as, of course, the people that this directly affects, in these majority minority districts.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, keep an eye on this. Keep an eye on this, and we just have to hope. We really just have to hope that some workable framework that protects the voting rights of people comes out of this case. And I am very concerned about that. This could be disastrous.
Yeah.
So, um,
And it's crazy. It
if
hasn't. It
if
hasn't
if
even been 80 years since the Civil Rights Act, Tommy. You know what I mean? And it's like, if that was 80 years after, a Civil War, it shows how like we can't even give it its time of how much we were screwing them over even before with slavery, since we started this country saying that all men are created equal, and we're just gonna go after them again. Like representation matters so much. That's crazy to me.
you know, I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm very glad you mentioned that. 80 years. As I was talking earlier about the Voting Rights Act, and I said that in the Shelby County case, the pre-clearance section was already found to be unconstitutional. So it used to be like in a case like this, like in Louisiana, they'd have to send their congressional districts or any changes in laws to the Department of Justice, so they could
Mm,
look over and make sure it's not racist.
yeah,
Okay? That's what the Voting Rights Act until 2013 mandated. Um,
I see.
they got rid of that because they said it's been 80 years. That was their logic. That was a big part of their. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. You know what I mean? But
Yeah,
that was part of that was a core fact for them in that case, so it's just crazy. We got to preserve the Voting Rights Act. We got to preserve the rights to vote for everybody, and to act like that, there's been no historical discrimination in voting against, black and brown communities in the South, and that the Voting Rights Act isn't needed because it's been 80 years. That's ridiculous. And I don't think anybody that seriously, cares about voting rights thinks that. So, but yeah,
yeah, agreed.
keep an
Like
eye on this.
it's
Be
like
scared.
it's scary. It can create like classism. You know what I mean? A lot of these people aren't majority, upper middle class or upper class. These minority communities, Black, Latino, Native American, Asian Americans, they could face increased difficulty in like literally just having representations. That's crazy. I don't
It's
know.
sad, and I took a whole class on election law, so I'm
Mm-hmm.
very familiar with the Voting Rights Act, and this is a long time coming. This is part of their Project 2025 agenda, is to
Yeah.
get rid of this.
And I would love to debate like Republicans right now. That's fine with this. It's like, how could you not say you're racist if you're doing racist things? Like, I don't get it. You know what I mean? Your party.
Mm,
It's like I don't know, it's sad. It could shift like just so much like color blindness, and a lot of people on the right are already colorblind. So, but it's like that doesn't mean the whole country has to be. Doesn't mean that the people that are these minority communities have to be. They're definitely the ones that aren't. They're a part that are in those communities and cultures. So it's scary, Tommy. Yeah, with everything else he's doing right now, this could be another step of him being trying to be a king. 'Cause that's another thing. You always, as a king, you have your lower class, your minority groups. Try to make them not
That's
vote. That's
that
crazy. Their vote not count in this stance, which is sad.
and that's what I'm saying is this is one of those key democratic norms that until Trump was not threatened. You know what I mean? Like this is one
Mm-hmm.
of those things that he's gonna make himself a king with. You
Yep.
know, like anyway, that's all I had to say on this.
Yeah, and
I could write a
I
TED.
agree
I
with
could
all.
do a TED
Me
talk
and
on
Tommy
it.
could spit all day about this, but I kind of like what I said before. I kind of just find it appalling, really, and it's how they're just going after that. It's sad. Because yeah, if civil rights was late 50s, early 60s, in 2010, that was 50 years. They gave it 50 years and said, all right, well, the white man, we feel like we're hurt. You got to bring it back. Like it's dumb, and we should, in my opinion, be sending any, like Tommy saying, any changes in maps to the Department of Justice, and it wouldn't even matter anyway if it's Trump's DOJ. But under a fair DOJ, you have history of that. If there's a Democratic president, hopefully they do the right thing and make sure they don't gerrymander the crap out of people. Their votes matter. It shouldn't be how much money you make, what color you are, what community you're in. Everyone has one vote in America. That's how the founding fathers wanted it too. So I'm ready to go into local two. It's gonna be our last topic tonight. Hopefully we'll get done before 9:30. Hope everyone's enjoying the content. Drop a like if you have. It's about the Ohio redistricting commission is reconvening on Tuesday or tomorrow. Kind of with the last topic too. Republican red states love gerrymandering. The Ohio Redistricting Commission is scheduled to meet on Tuesday, October 21st at 9 a.m. tomorrow to begin work on a new congressional map. Meeting follows for commission's reconvening by Governor Mike DeWine's office. Commission faces a deadline of October 31st to adopt a map. We've seen a lot of other states just go past this deadline and everyone go crazy, so that'd be nice. I'd like to see that. I'd like to see them miss the deadline and then everyone get really mad that night of. That'd be fun. I think West Virginia had that issue. Some other states are having that right now. Membership and logistics for the meeting will take place at the Ohio Senate's Finance Hearing Room. Commission includes Mike DeWine, Auditor of the State Keith Faber, Secretary of State Frank LaRose, two members of
Ooh.
each. Amen to that. Two members of each Ohio House and Senate, one from each party in each chamber. Confirmed appointees so far has been House Minority Leader Danny Isaacson.
Yeah.
Nice, Democrat. Senate Minority Leader Nikki Antonio. Antonio. Democrat. Thank you, Tommy. State Rep Brian Stewart, Republican from Asheville. And a Republican state rep appointed has not been appointed at the time of the article. So we're still waiting on that guy. The agendas. Major task is for selection of co-chairs and have a consideration of congressional map proposals. Only two map proposals formally on the docket as of the time of the article. Those introduced by Antonio and Isaacson in early September. Democratic proposals, which would create 8 Republican-leaning districts and 7 Democratic-leaning ones. We are a swing state with a decent amount of big blue cities, so that would actually make a decent amount of good sense to me. No public Republican caucus map has yet been released. Probably wait until the last week or a day to drop that one, and it's going to look like a 12-year-old made it, and it's going to be gerrymandered as a mofo. The commission's reconvening follows for the Ohio legislature missing the September 30 deadline to adapt a bipartisan congressional map. The Ohio Constitution sets multiple deadlines. Commissioners must act by October 31st, end of the month. And if a commission fails, the General Assembly has until November 30th and could pass a map with a simple majority, given Republican supermajorities rather than bipartisan approval. The outcome matters for the 2026 congressional elections in Ohio. Just quick key considerations and some tensions. For Democrat that the failure to meet the September deadline shows a lack of good faith negotiations by Republicans, especially if you have House rule and Senate rule. It's kind of hard to not get something passed, but that's how it is in all politics right now. Republicans note that extra time afforded by the November 30th fallback deadline and argue that the process is still on track. I don't know about that. For co-chair selection has in the past sessions caused delays, as seen in 2023. It's interesting. I wonder if they're just trying to delay it so they can get a simple majority and get a crappier map passed, easy money. Map proposals are highly partisan. Democrats' plan was slightly shift balance. Republicans yet to release their own plan, raising uncertainty about the process and fairness. Kind of like I said, they might just drop it on the last day and crap on our faces. So that'll be interesting. The new congressional map will shape Ohio's 15-seat U.S. House delegation, beginning in the 2026 election cycle. The bipartisan agreement is not yet reached. The risk of the map is drawn by a simple, like I said, Republican majority, potentially increasing Republican advantage and gerrymandering. The meeting marks a critical step in redistricting cycle that is closely watched for fairness, gerrymandering concerns, and compliance with constitutional requirements. But as we're seeing, they're trying to get rid of some of that. So interesting there. They might be waiting for the Supreme Court to be striking down more stuff. I don't know. What do you think about this one, Tommy? Another one coming at us.
Our state is so corrupt. It's actually kind of astounding.
The most, yep.
So like in several years ago, voters approved, a constitutional amendment that established this Ohio Redistricting Commission. That's made up of, it's a partisan commission made up of elected leaders in the executive and the legislative branch in our state government. And if they produce a bipartisan map, it's valid for a longer amount of time than if they don't produce a bipartisan map. So what the Republicans are doing is they're saying, we don't really care. We'll just come back every 2 years and keep doing this and keep gerrymandering it over. We'll just keep passing these with our simple majority. We're not even going to convene this commission until more than halfway through October, and we have to act by October 31st. The Republicans haven't even submitted any maps for proposals. They are completely not taking this seriously because they're not going to do anything. I wouldn't be surprised if they just announce a chair and a co-chair and then adjourn and then just go into the, General Assembly, pass some bullshit map that gives them crazy advantages with a simple majority. And they'll say, see you in 2 years, Democrats. By the way, we gerrymandered these maps, so you can't get elected.
Yep. No,
so really, again, we are not dealing with your grandfather's Republican Party here. We are dealing with people that really do not understand, or they do understand and they just don't care about democratic values.
Yeah.
And it's disgusting. And what we're seeing in Ohio is just another sort of, it's just more MAGA corruption that's infested the state house in Columbus. And one last point about this is,
no problem, Tom.
Last year we had an opportunity to change this. What did Frank LaRose do? We had a proposal in front of us last year where we could have established an independent redistricting commission that takes all these assholes out of this, and it's citizen-led. Okay? Now, what did Frank LaRose do? He lied. That's what they do. They lie. And they made the voters think that the anti-gerrymandering thing was actually pro-gerrymandering. And it worked.
Which is crazy, yeah.
So listen, again, this is not your grandfather's Republican Party. These are people that I would say probably they hate what I love about America. I'll say that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's disgusting. It's undemocratic, and it should be condemned on the strongest possible terms. It's disgusting.
It is, Tom, yeah.
But why are we surprised though? This is the party that did ECOT, that just didn't educate a whole graduating class in the state of Ohio. They did that. This is the party of Larry Householder, CoinGate. This is all of the scandals that permeate from the Ohio Republican Party. Why do we expect anything else? But still, it's shameful.
Agreed. And it is shameful. And I really hope that people wake up. You know, it's not always, oh well, I like Trump, I need to vote red for my state. If your state Republicans are screwing you, and they have time and time again, we gave First Energy 1.5 billion just to flush down the toilet and slap us in the face. So we have to be smart about this, guys. We really do. So either side, let's attack them. Let's say both, like, we don't want this. And it blows my mind, Tommy, too, because like you're saying, people on the right would be like, well, we just want representation and we want people in politics. But then you say, hey, you know, we'll have a people-led gerrymandering initiative group that does it. Nope, we're not voting that. We're believing what these people say. It's just crazy. I wish more people cared a little bit enough or more to not see politics as drama, but to actually learn about it. It's not the hardest thing to do, and then you actually see who's screwing you over instead of not caring and still getting screwed over. So, yeah, I'm not surprised.
It's
Tommy's
disgusting.
saying with everything this our state house has done and our governors have done in the past. I'm not surprised, but we need to do better.
There, I think there's a decent chance that they just walk in and sit down, pick a chair, and adjourn.
Yeah, that's crazy.
You know, I think there's a decent chance that happens. I don't even think that they might not even do anything.
And
You know,
people should be mad at
like
that.
at this point, you know, I don't even think they care about giving an appearance of, you know, not acting corrupt. At
Yeah.
this point, they're just like, fuck it. You know, like
Yep. And like Tommy's saying that's not the typical Republican, your grandfather's Republican Party. You know what I mean? Stuff's changed a lot with Trump and even like kind of like post Bush and post Reagan. That's it's just different. So that's really it for me too, Tommy. Because yeah, this one's just another trying to gerrymander the crap out of us to get less Democrats, and it's not even a Democratic thing. It's just like less people's votes matter. People's votes should matter. You shouldn't live in a big
yeah.
city and be voting the same person as someone in a rural area, as a whole. You know what I mean? It needs to be better for that. So that's really it for me. Are you good on this topic, Tom?
Yeah, no. I'm all good.
All right. I hope everyone else enjoyed the other topics. We talked a lot about, you know, all the protests going on, which is great to see. The frog people, people in other countries, Australia, London, Ireland, all protesting. So many people. It was great to see. Hopefully, we keep doing it. You know, we keep showing Trump that he can't be doing some of the stuff we're talking about today. Even if the State House, people at the State House need to realize how people are mad. You know, we're even seeing people on the right understand and switch over, so that's good for me. We'll be back here Thursday. It's at 8:30 for Northeast Ohio Sports Show. This is a week ahead news show with Liam and Tommy. Hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Drop a like if you haven't. You can always watch on video on demand. Likes on there help out us just as well as watching live, so I appreciate that. That's it for me. How about you, Tomboy?
Thank you for having me. Check out Liam's other shows. I'll be back on next Monday to get this pain train, keep it rolling. But at least we're keeping people informed. So yeah, thanks for having me as always. I enjoyed the show.
That's a good idea, Tommy. We need a pain train like screen, and then like the old SpongeBob technical difficulties screen as well. But before we go, you never seen Tommy Boy, have you?
I don't think I have, no.
It's a Chris Farley movie. That's why I always love calling you that, because I always just think of that freaking movie. Chris Farley's good. We'll have to watch it one night. But that's it for us, guys. Good night, Youngstown. Have a great rest of your week. 4 more days. Try to fight through this rain and cold weather. Don't